Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're getting into something pretty important: how organizations handle and protect data. And let's face it, that often means your data.
Exactly. We've got some interesting insights here drawn from what we're calling Lesson 16. Our aim is really to pull out the key takeaways for you.
Right. If you've ever felt that data privacy, company rules, and cybersecurity are, well, complicated and maybe even disconnected.
Yeah, this deep dive should help connect those dots.
Uh,
We're hoping for some real aha moments, but without burying you in technical terms.
Absolutely. The material we're looking at today, it covers quite a range. Things like your rights over your personal info
hmm
and the practical steps companies take, or maybe should take, to keep it safe. We'll touch on regulations, employee training.
Even things like USB drives, which sound small but can be a big deal.
Yeah, definitely. So our mission today, pretty straightforward. Extract the vital stuff from these sources, give you a clearer picture of data management and security as it stands now.
Okay, sounds good. Where should we start?
Well, let's start with the basics, maybe. What control do we actually have over the data held about us?
Okay, yeah. And right away, there's a key distinction that our sources point out. It's quite interesting. So while you generally have the right to ask for corrections, make sure your info is accurate.
Right, that makes sense. If it's wrong, you should be able to fix it.
Exactly. But under federal regulation, there's a pretty significant catch. Actually deleting records that have been created. That's often not allowed.
Really. So you can fix a mistake, but you can't just say, get rid of this whole record.
In many cases, no. The original record might have to say, even after it's been amended. It creates this sort of tension, doesn't it? The right to accuracy versus the inability to just erase.
That is surprising. I think most people assume my data, my right to delete.
Well, it seems it reflects a balance. Individual privacy on one hand and the organization's need, sometimes legal need, to keep records on the other. History, compliance, things like that.
So control isn't absolute. It's got nuances.
Definitely nuances. And it highlights the difference between your rights as an individual and the organization's own data retention policies and obligations.
Which can sometimes override your request to remove data.
Precisely. Legal or regulatory needs might require them to keep data for a certain period, regardless of your preference.
So even if a company is really organized, knows exactly what data they have, keeps their privacy policies updated.
Right, even with good practices like data inventories and clear policies.
Hmm.
It doesn't automatically solve that conflict if you ask for deletion, but they have a valid reason to retain it.
Okay, so getting data fully removed can actually be quite complex legally. That's a really important point.
It is.
All right, let's maybe shift gears a bit. Let's talk about the people involved, the human side of cybersecurity.
Yes. This is such a crucial area. The sources really put a spotlight on employees playing a proactive role, thinking of them almost like a human firewall.
A human firewall like that. So training them to spot phishing emails, that kind of thing.
That's a big part of it, yeah. Giving them the awareness, the skills to recognize those malicious attempts, it actively reduces risk.
But it's probably more than just spotting emails with bad grammar right now. What else makes this human firewall effective?
Oh, definitely more. It's about building a security-aware culture. So having a really clear, simple way for employees to report something suspicious is vital.
Ah, so they see something, they say something, basically.
Exactly. It makes them active participants. They're not just passive targets. They're part of the defense system.
Okay. And what about things like two-factor authentication? Many of us use that daily. How does that fit in?
That's another great example of engaging the employee directly, because it requires an action from them every time they log in, or often anyway, that second factor.
Right, you have to actively pull out your phone or use an app.
Yeah, it makes security a conscious step.
Hmm.
And that's quite different from purely technical measures, isn't it? Like, say, deploying a new network firewall. That's critical, of course, but it works in the background. The employee doesn't interact with it directly.
That's a good distinction. The firewall is essential infrastructure, but 2FA is about individual action. So the sources emphasize user guidance, training, educating people on risks and procedures, trying to cut down on human error.
Absolutely, because often human error is the weak link attackers exploit. And it's not just about reading manuals. Things like tabletop exercises are really valuable.
Where you simulate an attack scenario.
Exactly. Or situational awareness training. It gives people hands-on experience, helps them understand the context in a safe space.
Like a fire drill, but for cyber threats.
Kinda, yeah. It builds muscle memory, Makes them better prepared if something real happens.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, what about the classic tools? Security policies, employee handbooks. How effective are those in, say, teaching someone to spot a clever social engineering attempt?
Well, that's where we need to be realistic. Policies and handbooks, they're important, right? They set the rules,
Yeah.
provide a reference,
Sure, you need them.
but they tend to be passive. Reading a policy doesn't necessarily train you to notice the subtle clues in a really convincing fake email or phone call.
Not like interactive training or those simulations you mentioned.
Exactly. And again, compare it to technical fixes. A new firewall, stronger password rules, vital, yes. But they don't inherently teach someone how not to be tricked by a person.
Right. The tech protects the systems, but the training protects the person from being manipulated.
Precisely. And that's where things like specific data privacy courses also come in, teaching the ethical responsibilities around data.
Okay. And what about password management? That feels like it bridges the gap between policy and individual behavior.
It really does. It's not just setting a policy like use 12 characters. It's educating why strong, unique passwords matter. And maybe giving people tools or strategies to manage them without, writing them on sticky notes.
Right. So it involves policy, but the focus is changing user habits.
Yeah. And that's different from, say, network segmentation or updating antivirus software. Those are crucial technical defenses. But they don't directly fix the problem if someone's using password 123 everywhere.
Got it. So again, it circles back to empowering and educating the individual users, making them that first line of defense.
That's the core idea that seems to be emerging.
Okay, interesting shift. Now, let's talk about something maybe smaller, but potentially quite risky. Portable storage devices, USB sticks and the like.
Ah, yes. The humble USB drive. Our sources are pretty clear on this one. Organizations really need a strict policy for these devices, and they need to enforce it.
Why so strict? More than just general security awareness.
Well, think about it. You can have the best firewall, the best training, but none of that stops someone from plugging in an infected USB drive they found or walking out the door with sensitive data on a personal drive if there aren't clear rules against it.
Yeah, it bypasses a lot of the network defenses.
Exactly. And even physical security upgrades like, replacing network cables, that doesn't touch this specific risk of removable media.
It's an easy way in or out if not managed. Often overlooked, maybe?
Very possibly. Seems innocuous, but it's a real vulnerability. Policy and enforcement are just key here.
Okay. Point taken on portable storage.
Yeah.
Let's zoom out a bit now, thinking about the whole work environment and resilience.
Right. How do you set things up so the business can keep running even when things get disrupted?
What do the sources suggest is a resilient model for today's world?
The idea of a hybrid work environment comes up strongly. Having the capability for people to work effectively both on-site and securely from remote locations.
That blend offers flexibility.
It seems to be the key takeaway. It aligns well with needing to be resilient. If something happens at the office, people can work remotely. If remote systems have issues, maybe on-site is an option. It gives you options.
Makes sense. What about the extremes? Fully remote or fully on-site?
Well, fully remote, while maybe digitally secure, lacks that physical site option if you need it. And fully on-premises, obviously, doesn't have the secure remote capability that's become so important.
And outsourcing everything.
The sources suggest that's maybe not ideal for your existing workforce, and it can bring its own complexities in making sure their security aligns with yours.
So hybrid offers that strategic balance, that adaptability.
That seems to be the conclusion, yeah. Adaptability for a dynamic landscape.
Okay. One more area to cover. The Security Operations Center, the SOC. Yeah. What's its fundamental job?
All right, the SOC. At its core, according to these sources, it's about reporting and monitoring. But it's not passive. It's continuous, active observation of networks, systems, looking for anything unusual, any red flags.
Okay, monitoring for problems and the reporting part.
Crucial. Regularly communicating what they're seeing, the findings, to the right people in the organization, keeping stakeholders informed.
So it's proactive and communicative. How is that different from, say, incident response planning?
Good question. Incident response planning is about what you do after something bad has already happened, the plan you activate. The SOC's monitoring and reporting is about trying to detect things before they escalate into a full-blown incident or as they're happening.
Got it. Prevention and early detection versus reaction.
Right. And it's also distinct from just log analysis. Log analysis is a tool the SOC uses for sure. But the SOC's core practice here includes that broader regular communication piece, not just finding anomalies, but reporting on the state of things.
And threat intelligence gathering.
Also vital input for the SOC, understanding the potential risks out there. But again, the SOC's day-to-day core function described here is that continuous watchfulness and reporting cycle.
That proactive communicative loop.
Okay, yeah, that seems to be the essence of effective monitoring from this perspective.
All right, so let's try and wrap this up. We've covered quite a bit.
We have.
Started with data privacy rights and that surprising limitation on requesting deletion, even if you can correct errors.
The complexity there.
Then we really dug into the human element of cybersecurity, the shift towards employees as a human firewall.
Yeah, training, reporting systems, 2FA, understanding social engineering.
And distinguishing that from purely technical fixes. We also hit on the specific risks of portable storage.
And why strict policies are needed.
Then looked at work environments where hybrid models seem to offer key resilience.
Adaptability, right?
And finally, the SOC focusing on that core of active monitoring and consistent reporting.
It paints a picture, doesn't it? All these interconnected pieces.
It really does. And understanding how these different facets work together, it feels pretty essential for being well-informed today, not just for tech people.
Absolutely. Data is everywhere. These issues affect everyone. Having this kind of understanding is, well, it's just necessary now.
Agreed. So maybe one final thought for everyone listening. Considering those limits we talked about, not always being able to fully delete your data, even if you can fix it, what are the most important things you, as an individual, can actually do? To proactively manage your own digital footprint and protect your information as best you can within those constraints.
That's a great question to ponder.
Right.
Where does our real control lie, and how can we best use it?
Exactly. Something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.